Do you wonder about the false narratives being fed over and over again to various generations throughout the modern world, the repackaged promises and trade offs, as well as the mental conclusions derived from such a realization of indoctrination? Well, today in my garage, we will be discussing all of that and a little bit more in The Post Office Girl by Stefan Zweig. The Post Office Girl follows the story of a Christine Hofliner and her time working in a post office in Austria. The Post Office Girl is set only a handful of years after World War I, where a large part of Europe and the world is in total shambles. Christine works in the post office to help support her family. However, she spent the better part of her youth to pay back a debt issued by an aristocracy for a useless war. Now she has nothing to show for her spent youth but a dying mother and a mundane job in a copy-pasted post office that she cares so little about. In the midst of Christine's absurdity, she receives a telegram from her aunt who married a wealthy American. Her aunt wishes to take the worn-out Christine on a nice trip to a fancy hotel. At first, the invitation feels like a curse because Christine is so hesitant to let herself experience this feeling of joy. However, when she arrives, she quickly becomes so enveloped in it. It's the first time she's experienced joy in the large part of her youth. However, the experience ultimately reveals itself to truly be a curse because prior to it, Christine had lived in a sort of ignorance of fulfillment, now coming back to the post office with a full acknowledgement of fulfillment. Much happens after Christine returns from the trip with her aunt, but to sum it up, her absurd reality reaches a boiling point. One day, Christine is visiting her sister, and Christine's brother-in-law invites an old war buddy inside. Her brother-in-law's old comrade quickly begins to rant about his current state of affairs and seemingly shares a lot of Christine's disappointments. He did everything he was supposed to do as directed by society, and now he has nothing to show for it and he feels entirely swindled. He went to school, then he went to war, and now he's back and is casted aside by the world. And Christine got a job to support her family, but now her father's dead, her mother's dying, and her existence solely relies on working at a copy-pasted post office. They resonate with each other's disappointments, and they fall into quite the tragic spiral that I won't be getting into in this video. However, it begs the question, what is the correct way to navigate reality? And is the path laid out by society the so-called correct way to live? Is that a good way of gauging a good way of navigating reality? Throughout the 20th century, there have been many generations of people who have come to fruition and stated, this is not working. You have the lost generation of post-World War I, you had the beats of post-World War II, you had the Vietnam era, the hippies and the counterculture movement, then you have the punks during the wars of the Middle East and North Africa, and now you're coming up to our generation right now. One thing these generations have in common is a war. My theory for this is that war is an obvious way for groups of people to recognize that they have been sold a false bill of goods. Each generation is told from a young age that there is a right way and a wrong way to proceed in life's procession. And the right way doesn't always pan out for people, and usually the wrong way is a little bit more appealing. I am not arguing that people should take an active role in fighting against the path society leads them on. Maybe sort of, but I'm merely pointing out and making connections to the qualms of earlier generations. The postmodern philosopher Jean-Francois Lyotard discusses the idea of the destruction of the metanarratives in his essay The Postmodern Condition, as well as ideas like the society of spectacle. To put it simply, the destruction of the meta-narratives is saying that the narratives in which society relies on for people to believe and have faith in it are becoming more and more false. For example, the American dream is a narrative that the idea of America relies on. However, many more Americans every day are starting to realize that it's not necessarily true. This, coupled with the idea of the society of spectacle, paints a bleak picture for the future of fulfillment in coming generations. It seems that people, by and large, do not respect the validity of the traditional path. However, people continuously walk down that road, blindly taking in larger and larger bites of temporary stimuli, i.e., the society of spectacle. It seems today that people are deciding against genuine connections with those around them and their environment. Rather, they are choosing an algorithm that will endlessly flood their brain with stimuli of spectacle proportions. And I'm not even sure what I'm trying to say, if I'm being honest. Though I do agree with the conclusions of many of our past generations. Their conclusions being reconstruct your value system outside of everything you've ever been told, create and develop a narrative based on experience, not indoctrination, and take an active role in who you are and what you're doing. I guess I'm just saying to try your best not to passively go through life taking in whatever's allotted to you. Recognize the shadows on the wall, stand up from the cave, and step into the blinding light. That was a little melodramatic. Today we talked about The Post Office Girl by Stefan Zweig, and then really fast we talked about The Postmodern Condition by Jean-Francois Lyotard. Both are really interesting. I'd recommend The Post Office Girl. It's a little more enjoyable. But I had a great time talking about that today. I feel like it was a necessary topic to talk about, at least for my own self. I hope you enjoyed that video. It was fun for me to make, a little annoying as well, but hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Planes flying, but peace, peace.